Hi, I'm Random Excess, and you're here tonight with Random Thoughts with Evolution Child and Dutch Schulz.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, Bonnie. Hello, Shane.
Hello.
This is Wayne. Um, the way I thought we'd run this is I am not very good, apparently, of trying to figure out exactly what it is I want to talk about.
Okay.
I'm much better at just chit chat starting, and then somebody will say something that clicks with something, and so that's kind of the way I want to run that. And I think it's like
Okay.
this, to give you an example, it's mostly like quotes. Somebody will say, or quotes or cliche. Somebody will say something like a common expression, cliche, like nothing changes if nothing changes, and then all of a sudden my mind will latch onto that and think that's not just a cliche. That's not just a throwaway. There's something very deep in those words. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And then my mind goes off, and that's the kind of stuff I want to talk about. It's like when, and not just me, but all of us, I think here. I'd like us to try and do that. When something gets on that really triggers you,
Okay.
and triggers a flood of thoughts, and then just run with it.
All right.
I just know for me, I'm not good coming in like prepared because then I spend too much time. I'm like a stutterer, or who's like, and it just stops, and then the thinking doesn't flow. But when the floodgates open, I just have to, it's like somebody has to turn me off, like a chatty Cathy doll that pulls his own string.
I know what you mean because I saw something today. Actually, I put a quote on my Facebook that made me think of something you said in a previous one of your episodes.
And what
Do you
was
want
that?
me to share that with you? Well, I don't know if you saw it, but it's just the most beautiful picture of this boy. One of his little pudgy hands is on his heart, and the other is on a tree, and his eyes are closed, as though he's just, in the moment with the tree. And it says, "See with your heart."
Oh.
Have you seen that?
that? Yes.
Yeah.
You know what that made me think of was in one of your episodes, you were talking about duality and different perspectives, looking at life through one perspective or another. And through my spiritual journey, I think that if I were to sum up, what that journey is, I feel that journey has been going through life up until a couple years ago. I was always looking through the lens of the mind, and in the past couple years, I've shifted. It's like now I'm seeing with my heart.
Oh.
And I just thought, wow, that's just like what I think you were trying to touch on, perhaps in your own language and in your own way from your own perspective. But I really felt that shift. I feel it every day, and it's kind of my mantra. You want to see through your heart. It makes everything look different and taste different and feel different and sound different. Everything is different that way.
Yeah. I think there's reminds you like seeing, looking with teaching. There's this great little expression. Again, a good teacher tells a student where to look, but not what to see.
Yeah.
Because it's what you see. That's your perception. It happens in your head or in your heart. Well, really, it's in your head. We know the biology. It happens in your head, but it's something that's unique to you. It's not with your eyes. We don't see with our eyes. That's just photons.
Well, it's not all your head, actually. Have you seen the movie I Am?
Yeah.
Well, there's studies all over the place that show that the heart actually responds first and by itself. And you can be brain dead, but you can't be heart dead.
That's one way of looking at it, that's for sure.
I don't think I've ever heard dead silence after I've spoken.
You have me pondering on that one.
Well, it's something to think about. It's not something that you're going to have and what I'm learning too, instead of responding immediately to something, just let it sink in for a second and get a feel for what was just said there, because it is kind of moving if you think about how profound that is.
Yeah.
Like we almost worship the mind. And I think that's one of the things we need to step back and say, the mind is an amazing tool that it's basically a movement of thoughts. That's what mind means. If you want to get to the gritty of things, it's the brain. And the brain is a tool. And so is the heart, and so is the body. So it's not just the mind, in my opinion.
And you know what? I can definitely concur with what it is that you're saying, because without my heart, my mind is pretty much useless. I mean,
Well, it can take you into a lot of trouble areas. You can get lost in your thoughts, and that's really what the mind is, the movement of thoughts. You know, so it's important to remember your heart.
right.
Let that be the space you're in, and respect your brain for the tool that it is. It allows us to move around in these beautiful spacesuits of ours. You know, because if you really think about it, that sky up there is not a ceiling. We're in the universe all the time. Right?
Totally.
That's true. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, we certainly got the sky. Because the people say the sky's the limit, and those are people who have limited views.
It's a very limited view, yeah.
The sky's the limit. You never get to the moon. You never get to Mars.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, what would be the point of having bodies? What would be the point of falling in love? What would be the point of just buzzing around as though we're just a bunch of thoughts? We're so much more than that. And when you can take a step back and recognize thoughts as a separate entity, not you, your whole world changes, or at least mine did. You know?
How long have you felt that way? I'm wondering.
It just kind of happened, to be honest, a couple years.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's something that I fall. The mind is a very clever trickster, as I call it. I can fall into that, and I can get caught up in the thoughts, and then it'll become a story. But every time I see through my heart, all I do is remember, go back to that space, that heart space, and then that drama that the mind creates just kind of fades away. So it's a practice, I guess. You have to get used to being mindful.
Well, it's funny that you should mention that, because I mean, I personally am going through some therapy that actually talks about doing just that, and that is to be very mindful.
Yes, and not mindful, mindful. Be paying attention. You want to be alert, alive, be in the moment.
I am trying to pay attention. I am paying attention.
You are?
No, I do understand what you're saying. Is that being one and very simplific with what it is that my heart is feeling, as opposed to what my mind is racing with on all the things that I should do.
Right. This is the mind talking, not the heart.
Yes, the things that I should do, or the things that I need to do, or what have you, instead of what it is that actually feels right, which is in my heart.
And there you go. That's how you kind of get to differentiate the two, because when you're moving from the heart space, there's only constructive thinking going on in terms of, like, let's say you're riding a bike. Well, your mind isn't riding the bike. Your brain is helping you, though. Your brain is helping you function this body so you can ride a bike.
Right.
But you don't have to think about it. You know how to do these things. And if there was a cat that ran across the street, your heart would stop you. You would know to stop, not because your mind said, oh, you better stop, there's a cat running across the street. There's something deep within you that knows to stop and not hit that cat, unless you're really caught up in your mind, and then you might hit the cat. But that's what happens when you get caught up too much in your mind. You stop, you almost forget yourself. I hope I'm not going right off on a different path here that you weren't planning on.
No. I mean, no, I think what you're talking about, I think what you call the heart is just, I think of as the emotional mind. I mean,
But how do you separate those two? Because I did like I said, if your heart stopped today, your brain could not save you. It would not keep you alive. You'd die.
people live with artificial hearts. People live
Artificial
without.
heart is still a heart. They
People
don't
live
put a
without a
brain in
heart.
that space. People cannot live without a heart. You can have an apparatus to mimic a heart,
Yeah.
but you couldn't put a brain in there. So who trumps who here?
Well, that's the thing. You can put you can put apparatus in instead of the heart. So it's not the heart. I mean, the apparatus at that point. The brain. You need your brain. There's no artificial brain that's going to come in and live for you. If your brain is gone, you're gone.
No, you're not. Your body could still live.
No.
You'd be brain dead.
Even the phrase brain dead doesn't mean that the brain is dead. That's just the phrase that you use. But
okay, but let's
life
say the
activity
brain,
in the
is not functioning, right? Okay, actually, that's a really good point you make, because it just works in my favor, really. Because if not that there's sides here, but let's say you're completely brain dead, clinically speaking, brain dead. You just said there's still activity going on, right?
Sure.
So what is moving that activity?
Well, the brain. I don't know what you mean. So the brain is still. It's just a phrase, brain dead. It doesn't mean that the brain is dead. It's just a word they use.
What does it mean then?
I don't know. Alpha waves are low,
and where do those waves come from?
I don't know what they come from. The brain. Brain activity.
Are you sure?
I'm not a doctor.
Exactly, and neither am I. But I know that a drop of water in an ocean is no more or less the ocean. It is the ocean, and we are no more or less the universe. So there's something moving within us besides our mechanical tools, such as the brain and the heart and the body.
Well, there is definitely something that happens when you put a lot of brain cells together. That I will say, and we have no idea what that is. We can speculate all day long
exactly
what we think that is, because if you take one brain cell out of your head,
but when I see
that brain cell is not you. It just you say you, but if you pull enough of them out, and until there's one left. Is that you, that brain cell, or whatever?
So
you think
do you think do you think that you are fully, and I'm not mocking you or anything, I'm genuinely asking, do you think that you are fully functioning 100% powered by your brain?
I think our sense of identity, of identity, my sense of individualism, the fact that I feel separate from you, from Shane.
That definitely comes from the mind.
That's the mind. That's an illusion. That's all the brain cells getting together, and they conspire.
So
and they
do you
say,
recognize
we're
that
different than those brain cells?
Yeah.
But they do define their own reality, their own sense of self, which I call me, and they kind of operate my fingers, my eyes, my words, and that's their little thing going on. But all the atoms of my body are part of the universe, and they're just as much part of the same universe as the atoms in your body, the atoms in Shane's body.
That's right.
The atoms are no more separate or connected than the ones in my body, than the ones between our body. Completely. We are connected to the universe in a very profound way. But
let's say you get
the sense of identity that we get.
There you go. The identity
is an illusion.
The sense of identity comes from the mind.
It's an illusion created by the brain.
But who are you really? That's the thing, that when you go into the heart space, this becomes very tangible. When you do it long enough, it becomes, you start to realize that you are not just the identity that your experiences thus far.
Right.
Your mind is tracking all of it, and it creates its own identity. But you're not that identity exactly.
No,
you're a little bit more than that. You're in more control than that.
I'm after the whole. I'm not real sure what that means. A little more control, but certainly definitely more.
Well, who controls you when you're talking right now, right? Who controls you when let's say you decide to have a drink of water? And
Okay,
I know
I'll
you
do
could
it.
say it's because
For
your
the
body's
fans at
telling
home,
you
I'm
you're
doing that.
thirsty. But what controls your arm? What controls this action of yours?
Says that's this conspiracy of my brain cells, this illusion of
But who
identity. It's doing
decides?
that.
Who decides to drink that water or not?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Who decides to take that sip of water?
Science is currently debating whether free will is an illusion or not. We think of free will as being, I have free will.
Well, that's a whole different topic.
But no, because it's that free will. If it's not an illusion, then the free will decided to drink the water, maybe. But if free will is an illusion, then I can't make that argument. I can only say I decided to do that if free will is real. But
well, there's free will, and then there's freedom of choice. I think we live in there's somewhat not free will, only that things kind of are what they are. For example, gravity. You can't defy that unless you want to leave this planet and live in a spacesuit or something, right? Like, there's some things that just would say that there's an edge and there's a certain amount of freedom, but is there free will? Well, that's hard to say, but you do have freedom of choice, and that's what I was kind of speaking on, is that you had the choice to take that drink or not.
Sure.
You
Right.
have the choice to pick the blue blouse or the red blouse. You have the choice to take a step back and breathe and not react to a situation, or you have the choice to go full on and react. Those are your choices.
at least we'd like to think they are. But like I said, the science is still out on that, only because of these weird...
Well, I don't need science to tell me whether or not I can or can't make a choice. You make choices every minute of the day.
They've done these experiments where they have people, and I guess you have a choice of pressing two buttons, a left button or a right button. Actually, that's not it. So press one button. And what they do is you sit there, and then when you want to press the button, as quick as you can, as soon as you decide you want to press it, you press it. And they do this study over and over and over again, and they monitor people's brainwaves. And when they do this, they find out that there's this unexplained lag between when they press the button and when the brainwaves say something's happening, like you're going to press the button. And the lag is
That's very interesting. So choice
and the
comes
lag-
first.
The lag is much longer than reaction time. They get back off reaction time. They say, well, you have the thought, and then there's going to be reaction time, and then you do it. But the lag is like 4 times that length. So in other words, they decided to do it, but they don't know that they decided to do it. That there's this little bit of a thing, not much, but there is this measurable lag.
But even then,
where the computer knows that you're going to press the button before you know. It's before your conscious knows it. So the question is, where's that coming from? So where's free will? What we think is free will is maybe it's subverted into the subconscious.
well, I mean that
here's the point.
test
If it's
in
subverted into
itself.
the subconscious, then the free will isn't as spontaneous as we think it is. In other words, it's driven a lot more by our experiences, by our memories, and by our core beliefs. There's
Initially, yes.
It happens way down there. So even when I make a choice, there's this charge coming from deep inside of our brain that rises to the level of consciousness. And now we think, I'm going to do that. That was my choice. And it was choice, but it wasn't your choice in this moment. It was a choice based on your experiences, based on your core beliefs, based on your deeply held thing. And that's why it's important, I think.
Well, if I were taking that test, I would already feel like I was being set up, because I'm told at some point I have to push the button. So where's the free will in even the test? There's no free will, because they're saying, here's the test and this is what it's about. You have to push the button. It's just a matter of when.
That's true.
So it's not really a fair test, because otherwise, if it were me, I would just walk away and say, then I won't push the button. But that wasn't one of the choices. The only choice was a matter of when you would push the button.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? Like, and then you have to.
Well, the science is still out. This was not a conclusive test. It did. There's lots of discussion come from this test. There's been other studies, and so the jury's out. And this is not settled science.
Yeah,
But
of course the jury's out. That's the fun of it.
And the science, they're looking into it. But and I admit, science is limited. I mean, it can, like you said, they can only test this one little thing. And what they're doing is they're forcing you to push the button. They give you a choice. Do it when you want. So yeah, science.
You know, like it's
wide open. Like it's
exactly. I mean, if people were just strolling along the street and they had some kind of test where it was just a very random kind of act. But studies are generally not done that way. They're done in a confined space with, even if it's only one simple thing like pushing a button, still your options are limited because you have to eventually push that button.
And there's a point. There's a reason for that in science. I mean, science has to be repeatable. In other words, somebody else in some other place with some other past experiences, some other person, they should be able to set up the experiment and use that. They should be able to run it, and they should be able to get the same result. And if they do, that'd be kind of that's what science is looking for, which is not necessarily the experience of this universe, because we have such different perspectives on the universe that we can never really be sure, what's the same and what's different. I mean,
yeah, and I mean, going back to the heart space, for me, that wasn't something I knew about. I didn't let, as you well know, Wayne. I mean, I was a hardcore atheist. I waved that banner like a trooper. My interpretation was ignorant, truly, about spirituality. I thought it was just another word for religion, and I mean, I clearly know that they're worlds apart now, but I didn't when this happened to me. I won't go into the detail of what happened, but I guess I had a nervous breakdown is essentially what happened. And as a result of that nervous breakdown, something opened up inside of me, just a space that was never there before. I didn't know what was really happening to me, to be honest. It kind of scared me. It felt beautiful and terrifying at the same time because I'd never felt that kind of all-encompassing, like something had just been freed from me. I'm probably using just horrible ways to explain it, but it's really hard. I don't know that I can explain it. I don't know that I can. I think you have to experience it. Honestly, it's like trying to describe the taste of a strawberry. How do you describe a taste of a strawberry? You have to taste a strawberry to know that taste, right? Yeah. You can use all the words, oh, it's sweet, sometimes it's a little sour, it's got little bumps on it, it's got a kind of meaty little texture to it, but that still does not really explain the taste of a strawberry, and I can't explain this to you, only that something shifted inside of me, and it was just like that, like boom, happened. And in the moment that happened actually was in the same moment that I just gave up fighting. I gave up resisting what I felt at the time to be just too much for me to take. And I didn't want to be here anymore, to be quite honest with you. And I, in that moment, chose life. I definitely looked at both options. And I chose life, and I knew in that moment I'm going to have to change. I'm going to have to do all the work, and I want to, which was what I didn't want to do 5 minutes before that. It was like, I didn't want to do any work. I was pissed off. I was bitter. I was so engrossed in self-pity. And this was what truly, I think, brought me to that level of darkness. And when I gave up, it was just like, I didn't know I was giving up. Again, I'm not a religious person. I'll never be a religious person, but I wasn't spiritual either. I didn't know anything about this stuff. And I only after researching later, I bumped into spirituality, and it was like, oh, that sounds really familiar. And so I kind of went down that road. But the happening already happened for me. I just didn't understand what had happened. But if you look into spirituality, any kind of, not the hokey pokey, some people, the spirituality realm has just as many, I don't want to use the word quacks, but with any group, with any category, with any demographic, you're going to have your extremes. all I'm telling you is there was a space that came up inside of me, and I was ready for it. I didn't know what it was, but I cried. It was just as though everything was going to be okay. I realized, wow, I want to live, and it's never left me. Like, this just overwhelming. Even when I have down days, and I do, I understand now that I'm always in control, and if I go back to that heart space, I feel like I can move through anything much easier. So I don't know what science says about that, but this is my real experience of it. And ever since then, I have been able to pinpoint the ego when it's getting out of hand, and that's just truly in my words, but it's kind of like the mind. It's this separate identity that has just cultivated itself, and we often get lost in that identity and don't realize that we're so much more. And you can tame that ego. You can actually tame it once you become aware of it. Does that make sense?
I totally agree with what it is that you just told.
You get it?
A beautiful story. Absolutely. I've been in that situation. It's almost eerie as to how similar our situations have been. I've been to that point as to where to make the decision, do I want to live or do I want to die? And I'm not proud of it. There's been times where I've actually made the decision to not live. And
well, you couldn't have, because you're still here.
Well, no, I made the decision. I committed myself, but it didn't work out.
And when you came out of that, were you glad?
No. Not in any
So you had some more suffering to do first.
I had a lot more suffering to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we put ourselves to such tests, but I did it too. It was like, I don't know about you, but when I look back on it, I recognized myself deteriorating, and I was so bitter and self-pitying that I ignored it. Can you, if you honestly look back, can you relate to that?
I don't know if I could relate to the fact that I was self-pitying. I'll tell you what I did realize. This happened in 2011. 2011, I basically was broken to a point as to where I wasn't able to put it back together. And I literally didn't feel my heartbeat. Now, I knew, of course, that it was beating, but I used to be able to feel like it was, and I didn't anymore after this episode.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is that I've hit bottom numerous times, and I was able to put the pieces back together and move on and go forward, and in some ways flourish, whether it be work, I own my own business, or whether it be my recovery, which I'm a recovering addict. So I was able to do those things, but I still never was whole. And so I got to a point as to where I was broken, to where I couldn't find the pieces, much less put them back together. And like I said, I go to some therapy weekly, and there was a point in time where I finally said to myself, you know what? I'm not meant to be happy the way that I want to be happy. Maybe I'm meant to be utilized to help others. And then all of a sudden my heart beat a little bit. And it was very, very poignant. It wasn't anything extravagant or anything like that, but it was very poignant. Yeah. And from that point on, I believed in what it is that I was told in that moment, that message. And that message was meant that my experiences and were meant in order to help others. And even though they were my experiences, the message that was to come from them was meant more than just myself.
Right.
And so the days are not perfect by any means. There's many days as to where I look at where I'm at right now compared to where I've been in the past, and I almost cry because I don't feel like I'm where I want to be. But at the same time, that purpose that I think that I was given has carried me through those days, has gotten me through those tough times, and has led me to an avenue to be able to utilize my skill set and my strengths to be able to help others in a way that I would have never done before. And it's one that's healthy for me, and it's one that
very
can
healthy.
be effective. So I can totally appreciate what it is that you're mentioning in regards to your experience.
Yeah, it was all clear to me, though. It was just kind of immediate. It was all clear. It was almost like I almost didn't even matter anymore. It was
right.
It was, I don't know how to explain it. I felt like I was one with everything, and I still do. But not just felt. I understood. It's a knowing, an absolute knowing. I think my son thought I was losing my mind because I went with this for days, and I said the only thing I can say is I feel awake. Again, I didn't know anything about spirituality at this point, and I say that because awake seems to be a general word that they use in spirituality, but I don't know anything about that at that time. My son was kind of like, oh, and I just looked at him and I said, we are all one.
Right.
Like all of this trivial nonsense that we get tangled up in here, in this, it's almost like a story to me now. I used to take things so seriously, and now I don't. It's like, it's all okay, just love. That's like, if I can't impress that enough, because when you love, and like you say, helping others, whatever way that is, even if it's doing a podcast for a friend with a friend, taking time out of your day for someone else, smiling when someone passes by, but from your heart, not a fake smile, because people sniff that out anyway.
Sure.
But when you're moving from your heart space, everything feels better. So even if you don't have this wow kind of crash moment, if you're moving from your heart space, you're doing yourself good and you're doing everyone around you good. So you're on the right track. I mean, I don't know what science says about that, but I do believe, and I'm a big fan of science. I love science. I freaking love quantum physics. And that just gets me really excited.
Okay, I'm handing you off the Wayne now.
So just love, just love and you'll be okay. But don't forget to love yourself.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Both of you. Thank you very much.
I didn't actually plan on spewing all of that out. It just happened. I'm sorry if I offended anyone.
There's nothing to be sorry about. It was moving. It really was. And I think that anybody who watches this video is going to feel that way.
Well, I hope so. I kept this a secret for a really long time because, online, a lot of my online friends are atheists.
Right.
And I think they all thought I lost my mind, other than the handful that followed me over to Facebook. So it's a difficult thing when you're in the space of a label, regardless of what that label is. When you're in the space of a label, comes that label. When you're attached to a label like that, I know atheists like to think they're free birds, but they have their. I only recognized it once I shed myself of all labels, and I didn't even shed myself; they just kind of fell off of me. I had nothing to do with it; just they were gone. It just seemed really. What was important to me then and ever since is loving, and I think I was headed in that direction anyway. It's always been maybe my main thread anyhow. Like even within the confines of atheism, I was kind of always the one to say, love each other. But yeah, it's hard to get your head around. But for any atheists who might be listening, who have any kind of similar experience, feel free to get in touch with me, because I know what it's like, and I know the conflict, and I know how your mind is going to fight you every step of the way, because it's your pride that's going to get in your way. And your ego is going to get in your way, but just, don't take all that so seriously. Just go into your heart space and don't don't function with thoughts for a bit. Just feel how good that feels to be in your heart space, and just sit with that. And you don't have to label anything. But I would really encourage everyone to do that if they do anything, because that's where you're going to find peace. And when you can find that peace from inside, you no longer have to go looking for it out everywhere else. If that makes sense.
This is going to be another show. We're going to have to
What? Well, just we try every week. How about that? We'll call this episode 1, and then we'll do this every week. How about
I hope
that's
you're
an
not
idea?
humoring me. I'm really not trying to preach. I'm not trying to be anything. I'm just really just expressing myself from
It
the
absolutely,
heart.
it's not coming out as preaching, and it's,
Okay.
and like I said, it's moving from where you're coming from, and Wayne and I, we've had discussions in regards to some things that have gone on nationally lately that, these things just baffle my mind as to where people don't grasp the concept that we are one. It's
we
like,
really are, aren't we?
and yet, everybody wants to be in some separate group in order to create strife for one another.
We're conditioned, though, we're conditioned right from kindergarten on to be separate, to compete, to be divided. Our government system, it promotes division. Countries promotes division. Grades promotes division. It's everywhere. So,
And in fact, just earlier today on Twitter, I sent out a little thing that said, let's see if we can get it right because I say it in the right order. My race is human, my culture is life, and I am a citizen of the universe.
I
am
love that.
truly cosmopolitan, or I'm cosmopolitan in the truest sense of the word. 'Cause that's what it is. The only race I belong to is the human race, and as far as what is my culture? It's the culture of life, all living things. I share a brotherhood with all living things.
Yes.
But beyond that, I'm a citizen of the universe. And I can't separate myself from the universe, and I can't separate myself as a living thing from any other living thing. Because all living things, we come from the same living thing, at least on this earth, right? As far as we know, and it makes
you
sense.
Don't just come from.
We're just representations of the diversity of choice throughout. It's reproduction, mutation, and selection over billions of years.
Yeah.
Voila, diversity of life. So we're not really any different than our living cousins. And I want to. So I think about that sometimes, and today I was thinking about that, and and maybe it was in preparation for tonight, thinking, somebody was talking to me, the universe always talking to me, sending me messages, preparing me for this message tonight.
But that's the concept.
Well, someone asked me.
That's what I'll vote for, right? As opposed to what it is that's going on currently. We have a country that we live in, and both parties, the main parties that are involved, do everything that they can be to be conflictive to the other, and get nothing done, and in fact go backwards. So, and it's amazing and it's baffling to me where people don't see that. And your concept and what Bonnie's saying is saying, look, we're all the same. And yes, we have different groupings, we have different colors, we have different thoughts, and so forth.
It's the spice of life is diversity, but vision and
that's
diversity are
uniqueness,
two
right?
different things. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's and there's nothing wrong with that. Why
celebrate
are there
diversity?
people that are out there that are offended and scared of other people's thoughts, of other people's feelings? Every single one of us has them.
Yeah.
And then just through this conversation alone, we've got 3 people who are very friendly with one another, and we believe that each and every one has our own opinions and our own thoughts, and we're not looking to impede on one another.
but we're able to work it out as to where we have a great conversation. And it comes from three separate ideas. I think Bonnie may have dropped out now too. Internet being what it is, it's a wonderful tool when it's working, and when it's not working, it can really. Oh, welcome back, Bonnie.
I dropped out there.
Was it something I said?
I'm sorry, but I gotta say the quality's better now. That fantastic! I couldn't see you guys before.
Yeah, and your picture's there too, so we can see.
Yeah, look at that. That's fantastic. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I must say, Wayne, I would like to interject just for a second. I'm not sure what I interrupted coming back, but because I think our time is almost up. I want to just give a shout out to you because I admire you so much. I've known you right from when things are really tough for you, and what I find remarkable. I actually wrote it in my journal. In my journal, everybody is my soulmate, by the way, because we're all cosmic soulmates. In my mind, I love to think in that way because it just reminds me that we're one. And I'm a little weird, okay? So get used to my lingo.
You're special and unique. That's all.
Yeah, I'm special and unique.
You're one of us, a member of the universe.
Yes, and I gotta wave my flag, my freak flag, my own way. So I use a lot of words, magical, sparkly words, and that's just what gets me through the day. So for anyone out there listening who's rolling their eyes right now, it's okay. I understand. But I'm gonna move on. In my journal, I was just kind of reflecting, Wayne, on how far you've come, because I even when you were in the depths of things, when you were engaged, one would not know how much you were struggling behind the scenes. And I applaud you for the fact that you reached out the best way you could from where you were at. And I just think that you are the bravest person. You've come so far. I know all the work you've put to being where you are now. And every day, like I might sound weird because I'm not religious, but I do pray, and you're always in my prayers, and I pray for the world, I pray for the earth. My little circle that followed me from Twitter to Facebook is so special to me, and you're in that circle, and I can't say enough how happy I am to see so much growth in you, and I just love you so much.
Well, I really appreciate that, Bonnie. It's glad you were able to say it. I'm glad to feel it. I'm glad you say it.
I just want the listeners to understand what a sparkly individual you are.
This will get sort of revealed over time because my plan is to do this, a lot. We're gonna meet with Bonnie every Sunday night for about an hour, and then during the week, Shane and I are dragging some other people, and we have some conversation.
Excellent.
And then see where it goes week to week. It'd be like a little. It feel like a little anchor, and then like flying around with the anchors. Yeah. But you can go anywhere. But you're kind of anchored somewhere, and then week to week it'll change. We'll move along. That's what I want to see happen.
I like it.
But so in other words, my story is going to get revealed over time. But the short story is, for a long time I've been struggling with my random thought, and they get stuck in my head. And I want them to get out, and I can't get them out naturally. But something will trigger, and they pull a plug, and they all want to rush out. And it's something somebody says, somebody does, and then all of a sudden I have a lot to say. And not just about what they were talking about, but all these other little things that are connected to it.
Yes.
And it's like, I tried doing that, but when you do that enough, that's annoying to other people because we're talking about one thing, and Wayne's talking about something else. Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
But it's like it's so connected. Can you not see how everything is connected?
Yeah, everything
is connected. All my thoughts are connected in some way, or at least I'm trying to make them connected. That's another issue. I spend a lot of time in my head. You talk about the heart space. I spend a lot of time in the head space. But the idea is, if I can connect them, I think of it like building an arch. while you're building it, it's a mess. There's scaffolding, it's a lot of support here, a lot of chaos, until you can drop a keystone in. And then the arch becomes self-supporting. And if I feel if I can organize my thoughts enough, they become like a little self-contained little ball. And then I got three of them. They're like, now they kind of just bounce around a little bit. But you know, they want to try, when they come out, I can't just pull one little thing out because it's attached to all these other ones. But the other thing is, I can't myself, just start it. It's like it requires somebody else to trigger it. It's like I'm unable to pull my own trigger. It's like, okay, waiting, till somebody says something, and then, boom. Okay, that's sort of background of like going on in my head. And trust me, that's not a fun place to be. Especially when you're dealing with a lot of people. And what really helped me, at least I thought it was helping me, was drinking.
Right.
Getting up drinking, I mean, one, it let me start the ball rolling myself. It also
have you thought about writing?
It let me go. Here's the other thing. It's like writing is like, I said, with my paper. And it's that first thing I can't get up. I'm like, ouch.
Well,
if it only can get started, then it comes flowing out. But what would happen, just to wrap up my little story a minute, was I did a fair amount of drinking. Too much, some would say. And it got to the point where it was really bothering me, along with everything else that was bothering me.
Right.
And at this time, I knew you online, Twitter. I would do a lot of drunk tweeting. I would have fun. I was having a good time. But it wasn't like drinking was the worst thing in my life. But it became just not what I wanted.
Yes.
But I had no way to deal with it in a way that I could handle in my head, except for don't go outside.
Right.
Because my going outside had been reduced to just drinking. The only time I ever went outside was to go to the bar or to go to the store to buy something to drink, bring it home, and drink it home. And the only thing I could do was like, okay, if I don't go outside, I won't have to drink. Or I won't be able to drink. I won't need to drink. And I just be inside.
Right.
And I started not going outside one day at a time. How do you not go outside? One day at a time. Not going to go out today. Not going to go out today. Hundreds of days go by, about a year and a half, until I finally broke.
Yeah.
And ended up in the hospital, a couple of stays. But even out of the hospital, a couple of stays, I haven't gone back to the drinking. 1,388 days so far.
Excellent. I'm so proud of you. Yay!
The first 500 or 600 days were inside.
Yeah.
But that's more than that time outside. And but still the thoughts are there.
Well, here's the thing, though. Weren't you doing poetry? Weren't you doing poetry?
Yeah, I tried that, and I wanted to do
Because you're
that.
so good at it. And all I was asking about the writing is that it's a great way to tame those thoughts. It's a great way to, when you write, it's therapeutic, and your poetry is beautiful. And, keep a little notepad handy, and when those thoughts start to come, just jot down the notes like point form bullet and make something out of that. So, because you have a gift is what you have, and you don't realize it. You're brilliant.
Well, that's not the idea behind this, is to help me with that,
Yeah.
get those thoughts organized, get them articulated.
Good.
I got thoughts in my head, they're trying to get out, and I'll talk about this a lot, but I do my little language handshake. Two little thumbs are people trying to communicate with each other with thoughts. And it's the language here that you have to use. And that language can be the language, like spoken language, but it could be the language of art, music. It could be, there's any way we can communicate thought, some sort of language. But in order to communicate thoughts, like I want you to have the same thought I'm having, there's got to be a language handshake.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be agreement on the language. We got to speak the same language. The words have the same meaning. Okay, those are important if we're trying to communicate thoughts exactly. If we're just trying to stimulate thought, then you can just use all kinds of language. It can battle, but it creates thought, stimulates arguments, discussions. It could just be art that makes you feel one way. Somebody else sees it, they feel some other way. It's triggering all kinds of thoughts and emotional responses in them. That's great art. It doesn't have to be, the same for everybody, but it's communication. And so those are, and I'm not real sure where I was going with that, but over the writing, this forum here is going to help me get my thoughts a little more organized so that I can get back to the poetry and write something that I feel is communicating accurately what I want it to be communicating.
Well, good for you.
So.
Good for you. And, I would urge you to keep dabbling with your poetry, because I know with my doodling, it comes and goes. I call it now just like the creative wave. And it'll come, and when it comes, I just roll with it. And when it's dry, then I do something else. And just go with it. Like, if you're dried up right now, don't panic. You'll get another creative wave and do it, because what your mind also needs is a break. Your brain is just going constantly, and it's easy to get caught up in all those thoughts. So when you do something creative, you give your mind a rest, because that creativity comes from a deeper place, and it's very calm, and you get so engrossed. It's like meditating, really, the best kind of meditating, in fact, because you're not trying to meditate, you're just meditating. And, you're so focused on this piece of creativity that you forget, you're just not thinking anymore. You're doing instead.
Well, that's the keystone that I was trying to talk about. And this sort of does that for me. I have those thoughts in my head, and if I don't get them out, then I can't get them to drop the keystone. Because I feel better after I do something like this. If I get a good rant going, if I connect a lot of different random thoughts, and I feel good about it, to me it's like a piece of art. It's like, wow, I went from that topic to that topic, through a wild journey that was just, for me, fun, interesting, compelling. But I connected the dots in my head that now I can, instead of having all those different thoughts, I now have one. And it feels like, and then I can do something like the writing comes easier, or sitting quietly comes easier. I don't have to turn the music up loud. So when it's really getting to me, I'll turn the music up loud. I got to put the lights on bright. I can sleep like that if I have to. When I'm really, really going, it's like when I can sleep. It's like got to be really distracted externally with lots of stuff to drown out.
That's what creativity does. It distracts your mind.
Yeah.
It distracts you from your mind, actually. Yeah.
I gotta say that, I've known Wayne for a while now, and he's been a blessing to me, because at a time when I was at my lowest, for sure, he was my sanctuary at times, because I could sit there and I could just have a conversation, or guess what? I didn't have to say anything at all, and we could still be connected.
Yeah.
And and then there would be times where I joke with Wayne, it's like the domino effect. It's like I poke the one domino down, and then he's the rest of them that go down the line. and he's connecting them. And it's like one of my titles in my life that has stuck to me like glue is the master manipulator. Well, I could sit there and just poke one down and just sit there and watch and be in awe of what it is that's in this man's head.
I know. I love talking to him as well.
Yeah. And it's like, and some of the things I have absolutely not one clue with what he's saying. Zero. But then the majority of them I do understand enough in order to be able to keep him engaged. And we go back and forth, and it's like we're both benefiting overall. And I can leave, and he can leave, and we can actually feel like we did something today that was more than what we had to do or what we should do or anything like that. And like I said, he was the sanctuary for a good long time. So when
that's beautiful.
when it came to be able to get Wayne to be able to express himself,
Yeah.
when we figured out this as an avenue to do that,
Yeah.
man, I jumped on it. And
I'm so glad
and I'm
you
sitting
did.
there and I'll push him and I'll say, it's like, okay, what are we going to talk about? And he's like, well, it's going to be random. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I think when you have the right chemistry, like Wayne and I can kill an hour talking, just it seems like 2 minutes went by. So if you have the right chemistry, dialogue just seems to flow, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Like today, right? I mean, we were sitting there today. I mean, this week, I'm not going to lie, it's been somewhat stressful.
Yeah, that's a learning curve for you guys.
And, like you said before, this Google Hangout thing, well, it's not meant for amateurs to just say, oh, well, let's just, push this button and up it goes. It's like, we've gone through all the bugs, we've gone through flea power, and all sorts of different things. So we were sitting there, and it's been a stressful end. So finally, I was talking to him, and then I said, okay, what about this? And then all of a sudden, he went on one of his domino effects, right? And I said, welcome back, Wayne. Because this is you. And he realized it too, and that's why he came up with the triggers that he requires in order to be able to be effective.
Right.
And we sat there from 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was like, I don't know, almost noon. Where I said, oh my God, it's almost noon. It's like, I got to get something done here. But that's the thing. It's a sanctuary because it's like you get lost into it. And similar to this conversation, I love the fact this is by far the best show that we've had, right?
Aww.
And so I love the fact that we're going to continue this on a weekly basis. And it really has been a godsend to us because we're actually able to just talk and not have to come up with content and just roll with it.
That's the fun of it, and you will have an audience. You will draw an audience, especially I think just by the nature of who you are. It will have a similar flow, at least. And you'll draw an audience, and if you don't, it's kind of like my doodling. Whether other people like it or not, it makes me feel good, and that's the only reason I do it. So if, who cares, really, at the end of the day, how big that audience does or does not become.
And the worst thing that can happen is that we have these conversations weekly. Yeah. How terrible is that?
Oh, yeah, I'm excited. I'm happy to be part of it. I'm honored, actually. I mean, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer for sure. I think I have ideas and stuff. I hope that I can keep up with the two of you.
No, I think that you're a welcome addition.
Thank you.
And I think that you and I definitely are rewarded to be able to actually pull Wayne out of Wayne to show people what it is that we enjoy about him as much as what we do, and it can come out, the way that you and I know that it can, and that's to me, that's rewarding enough.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure for sure to be here.
Well, and that's going to about wrap it up for this week. This is Random Thoughts with Dutch Schulz, Evolution Child, and Random Access. We're going to be back next Sunday night. Another great conversation. Who knows where it's going to go? And during the week, Shane and I will be bringing some other people. 10 o'clock again on YouTube. The YouTube videos will get added to the playlist for this episode. So when you watch this episode, there'll be some after show episodes all week long. And then next Sunday, episode 2, Random Thoughts with Dutch Schulz, Evolution Child, and Random Access. Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, everybody.